High above the Earth, in the cold and silent space, darkness ruled everything. No sound, no air, only endless black space filled with tiny points of light. These lights were stars, old and distant, shining quietly for billions of years down on Earth. Humans looked up and wondered. For centuries, people tried to understand the sky. They built towers, climbed mountains, and made glass tools to see farther. But the sky always fought back. Clouds covered the stars. Dust bent the light. The air itself changed the view. The universe was there, but humans could not see it clearly. Scientists were frustrated. They asked the same question again and again. What is hiding behind the sky? In a quiet control room, filled with screens and soft beeping sounds, a group of scientists sat in silence. Their faces showed stress and hope at the same time. They knew something important had to be done. Time was running out. One scientist finally spoke. His voice was calm, but his eyes showed fear. "We need help," he said. "We cannot see the universe from here." This was not just a normal problem. It was a desperate call. The Earth's atmosphere, which protects life, was also a wall. It blocked clear vision. Light from far galaxies arrived at Earth tired and broken. The images were weak. The answers were missing. The universe was sending messages. Humans just could not read them. That night, the sky looked beautiful. Stars twinkled softly. But scientists knew the truth. The twinkling was not beauty. It was a problem. It meant the light was shaking. It meant the view was unclear. If humans wanted real answers, they had to leave Earth. Inside the room, a large screen showed a simple drawing. It was a telescope. But this telescope was different. It was not on a mountain. It was not inside a building. It was floating in space. A young engineer pointed at the screen. "What if we send our eyes above the sky?" he asked. "What if the telescope lives in space?" The room went quiet. His idea was dangerous. It was expensive. And it could fail, but it was the only hope. A space telescope would not see through air. It would not fight clouds. It would see the universe as it truly was. Pure, clear, untouched. The desperate call was made. That night, humans decided to build an eye in space. Years passed. The idea grew stronger. Engineers worked day and night. Scientists argued, tested, and fixed mistakes. Every mirror had to be perfect. Every part had to survive space. Space is not friendly. It is cold enough to freeze metal. It is empty enough to break machines. One small error could destroy everything. Still, they continued. They were not just building a machine. They were building hope. The telescope had one job: catch light. Light from stars. Light from galaxies. Light from the beginning of time. Light travels fast, but space is huge. Some light takes billions of years to reach Earth. Seeing that light means looking into the past. This thought scared and excited everyone. One scientist whispered, "If this works, we will see things no human has ever seen." But fear was always there. What if the telescope breaks? What if it never opens? What if it sends back nothing? Money was spent. Time was lost. Critics laughed. Some said it was impossible. Others said it was a waste. But the desperate call could not be ignored. Finally, the day came. The telescope was ready. It is placed inside a powerful rocket. Engineers watched closely. Their hearts beat fast. This was the moment of truth. The countdown began. 10, 9, 8. No one spoke. 3, 2, 1. Fire exploded under the rocket. The ground shook. The sky burned bright orange. Slowly, the rocket rose into the air, carrying humanity's dream with it. Inside the control room, people held their breath. The rocket climbed higher. It passed the clouds. It passed the blue sky. It entered space. Cheers filled the room. But the mission was not over. The telescope had to open. It had to wake up. It had to see. Hours passed. Then days. Signals came back. The telescope was alive. But suddenly, something was wrong. The images were blurry. The stars looked broken. The galaxies were unclear. Silence returned to the room. A mistake had been made. A desperate call had turned into a nightmare. Scientists checked the data again and again. The mirror was not shaped correctly. It was too small by a tiny amount. But in space, tiny mistakes become huge problems. Some people put their heads down. Others stared at the screen in shock. Was this the end? Years of work. Billions of dollars. All lost? Outside, the stars continued to shine. They did not care. The universe was still there, waiting. One senior scientist finally stood up. "This is not over," he said quietly. "We will not give up." The telescope was still alive. It was still watching. Humans just had to find a way to fix it. The desperate call had been answered once. Now it had to be answered again. High above Earth, the silent eye waited, waiting to see clearly, waiting to reveal secrets, waiting for humans to be brave enough. The universe had spoken, and the story had just begun. Space was quiet. Too quiet. The telescope floated above Earth, moving fast, but making no sound. From far away, it looked perfect, strong, powerful, like a hero watching the universe. But inside, a silent enemy was at work. Down on Earth, the control room was awake day and night. Screens glowed with numbers and blurry images. Scientists did not smile anymore. Their dream was hurt. The telescope was alive. But it could not see clearly. This was the worst kind of problem. If the telescope was dead, the story would end. But it was not dead. It was half working. And that made everything harder. Engineers checked every system. Power was fine. Communication was strong. The telescope was doing exactly what it was told to do. So why were the images wrong? One scientist leaned back in his chair. His eyes were tired. "The universe is clear," he said slowly. "The problem is us." They knew the truth now. The enemy was not space. The enemy was not distance. The enemy was a tiny human mistake. The mirror. The telescope's main mirror was made to be perfect. It was smooth like glass water. It had to bend light in the right way. Even a small error could destroy the image. And there was an error. The mirror was wrong by a very small amount. Thinner than a human hair. But light is sensitive. It does not forgive mistakes. Because of this, light did not focus correctly. Stars looked soft. Galaxies looked broken. The universe was there, but out of reach. In the control room, no one spoke for a long time. Outside, the world was watching. News spread fast. People asked hard questions. Why did it fail? Who made the mistake? Can it be fixed? Some laughed. Some were angry. Some were sad. The telescope became a joke to many, but not to the scientists. They felt pain, but also responsibility. They knew this mission was bigger than them. It was about knowledge, about curiosity, about the future. One engineer looked at the blurry image on the screen. "I still see something," he said. "It's not clear, but it's not empty." That small hope changed everything. The telescope was not blind. It just needed help, but help was far away. The telescope was floating hundreds of kilometers above Earth. No one could walk to it. No one could easily touch it. Space repairs were dangerous. Very dangerous. To fix the mirror, astronauts would need to travel into space. They would need to open the telescope. They would need to work in zero gravity, with thick gloves, while Earth moved below them. One mistake could kill them. Another silence filled the room. Sending humans into space was never easy. Sending them to fix a broken telescope was even harder. But the desperate call returned, not from space this time, from Earth. A senior engineer stood near the board. He picked up a marker and drew a simple line. "We cannot change the mirror," he said, "but we can change the light." Everyone looked up. He explained slowly, using simple words. If they could not fix the mirror, they could add special tools. Tools that would correct the light before it reached the camera, like glasses for the telescope. The idea was risky. It had never been done before. But it was possible. Hope returned. Plans were made. New instruments were designed. Astronauts were trained. Every move was practiced again and again on Earth. Time passed. The telescope continued to orbit Earth. It waited. Cold and silent. Up there. It could see storms on Earth. It could see the curve of the planet. But it could not see the deep universe clearly. It was like a locked door. Finally, the day came. A space shuttle stood ready. Astronauts climbed inside. Their faces were calm, but their hearts were racing. This was not just a mission. This was a rescue. The rocket launched. Fire and smoke filled the air. The shuttle climbed into space, chasing the broken telescope. Hours later, the shuttle reached it. For the first time, humans were close enough to touch their eye in space. Astronauts floated outside the shuttle. Earth was below them. Space was above them. They reached the telescope. Slowly, carefully, they opened it. Inside were wires, tools and metal parts. Everything had to be done perfectly. No second chance. They worked for hours. Then days. Sweat floated away as tiny drops. Every movement was slow. Every action was planned. Finally, the last tool was installed. The astronauts closed the telescope and moved away. Now, they could only wait. Back on Earth, the control room was silent again. The telescope turned on. Light entered. Mirrors reflected. Instruments worked. Seconds felt like hours. And an image appeared. Sharp, clear, beautiful. Gas, clouds, stars, colors no one had ever seen before. The room exploded with cheers. Some cried. Some laughed. Some hugged each other. The silent enemy was defeated. The telescope could finally see. But this was only the beginning, because once humans fixed their eye in space, they realized something important. If one telescope could change everything, what about a bigger one? Farther, stronger, better. High above Earth, the telescope looked deeper into space. And somewhere in the darkness, the universe prepared its next secret. The telescope was awake now. High above Earth, it moved smoothly in silence. No sound followed it. No wind touched it. Only light reached it. Old light. Weak light. Light that had traveled for a very long time. Down on Earth, scientists stared at the screens. Clear images filled the room. Stars looked sharp. Galaxies showed shape and color. The rescue mission had worked, but something strange began to happen. The telescope was seeing more than expected. At first, no one noticed. The images looked normal. Beautiful, but normal. Then one scientist leaned closer to the screen. His face changed. "These stars?" he said slowly. "They look too young." Another scientist shook her head. "That's not possible," she said. "They are too far away. Distance in space means time. The farther something is, the older its light. So how could young stars appear so far away?" The room became quiet again. The telescope was doing its job. It was catching light correctly. That meant the problem was not the machine. The problem was understanding. Light travels fast, but space is huge. Some light takes millions or even billions of years to reach the telescope. When the telescope sees that light, it is not seeing the present, It is seeing the past. This simple truth made everyone uneasy. The telescope was not just a tool. It was a time machine. One scientist spoke in a low voice. "We are looking back in time," he said. "We are seeing the universe when it was young." The idea felt heavy. The telescope was now looking deeper, far beyond nearby stars, far beyond familiar galaxies. It was entering dark space, where light was weak and rare. This was dangerous work, not for the telescope, for the humans, because the deeper they looked, the less they understood. Some images showed strange shapes, long lines of light, broken circles, clouds that looked alive. No one had seen things like this before. The universe was not simple. It was wild. Scientists worked day and night. They compared data. They argued. They made mistakes. They learned again. One night, when the room was almost empty, a young researcher stayed behind. He stared at one image again and again. It showed a deep black background. In the center, a small group of faint lights glowed softly. At first glance, it looked empty, but it was not. He adjusted the data, increased sensitivity, changed the settings. Suddenly, the screen filled with light, hundreds, thousands, maybe millions of tiny galaxies. All hiding in what once looked like nothing. Young researcher stepped back. Universe was full, even where humans thought it was. Empty. The next day, the image shocked everyone. It proved something powerful. Humans did not understand how big the universe really was. The telescope had opened a door, and behind that door was endless space. News spread quickly. The world watched in awe. Images from space appeared everywhere. People stopped and stared. They felt small. But also proud. The telescope became famous. Not as a failure anymore, but as a hero. Still, the telescope had limits. It could see light that humans could see. But the universe uses many kinds of light. Some light is invisible. Some light carries secrets the telescope could not catch. Infrared, ultraviolet, X-rays. The universe speaks in many languages. And the telescope understood only one. Scientists began to feel anew frustration. They were happy, but they were not satisfied. One senior scientist said it clearly during a meeting. "This telescope changed everything," he said. "But the universe is still hiding." He pointed to the screen. "Most of space is dark," he continued. "Dark matter, dark energy, hidden light." The telescope could see stars and galaxies, but it could not see how the first stars were born. It could not see through thick clouds of dust. It could not see the universe's earliest moments clearly. The desperate call returned once again. This time, it was quieter. More thoughtful. What if they built a new eye? Not a replacement. An upgrade. A telescope that could see invisible light. A telescope that could see through dust. A telescope that could look even farther back in time. The idea felt impossible. The first telescope was already hard enough. It had failed once. It had almost been lost forever. Why risk everything again? Because curiosity does not stop. Humans had tasted the truth, and they wanted more. In secret rooms and long meetings, new plans began to grow. Engineers drew shapes on whiteboards. Scientists argued over numbers. Budgets were questioned. Time was debated. This new telescope would be bigger. Much bigger. Could not be launched in one piece. It would need to be folded. It would need to open in space like a flower. One mistake, and it would be lost forever. No repair mission would be possible. This time, the risk was enormous. But so was the reward. The old telescope continued its work. It sent back images every day. It helped humans understand their place in the universe. Still, it watched silently as humans prepared its successor. High above Earth, light kept traveling, from stars being born, from galaxies colliding. For moments older than Earth itself, the universe was still speaking not, and soon, humans would build a new ear to listen. Somewhere in the darkness, far beyond the reach of the old telescope, secrets waited patiently, waiting for a new high, waiting for the next brave step. The journey was far from over. The old telescope continued to circle Earth, day after day, night after night. It had changed history. It showed humans that the universe was bigger, deeper, and stranger than anyone had imagined. But even this powerful eye had limits. Somewhere deep in space, behind thick clouds of dust and gas, secrets were still hidden. The telescope could not see them. Light from the first stars was blocked. The birth of galaxies was covered like a story behind a wall. Scientists felt proud, but also restless. They had reached one door. Another door was still closed. In a quiet meeting room, a small group of scientists sat together. The lights were low. The screen showed an image full of dark clouds. "These clouds are not empty," one scientist said. "They are full of stars being born." "But we cannot see inside," another replied. "The light is blocked." Dust was the problem. Space dust may look small, but it is powerful. It blocks visible light. It hides young stars and early galaxies. To see through it, humans needed a different kind of eye. An eye that could see invisible light, infrared light. Infrared light can pass through dust. It can show warm objects. It can reveal things hidden from normal vision. The idea was clear now. The next telescope must see heat. It must see invisible light. It must see deeper than ever before. But this idea came with fear. Infrared telescopes need extreme cold. If the telescope is warm, it will see its own heat instead of the universe. That means the telescope must stay frozen. Far from Earth, far from the sun, far from help. This would not be like the old telescope. No astronauts could visit it. No repairs would be possible. One mistake, and everything would be lost. Engineers felt the pressure. Scientists felt the weight of history. Governments questioned the cost. Years turned into decades of planning. Still, the idea did not die. The design began. The mirror would be huge, bigger than anything sent to space before. Too big to fit inside a rocket. So it had to be folded. Folded like a puzzle. Folded like a giant metal flower. The telescope would launch folded, sleep through space, and then open itself piece by piece, hundreds of steps. Each step must work. Some engineers called it the most dangerous deployment in history. Others called it madness. But curiosity won again. The telescope was named James Webb, a new eye. A risky eye. An eye built to see the invisible. Back in space, the old telescope continued to work. It watched storms on planets. It captured exploding stars. It became a legend. But even legends grow old. One scientist looked at an image from the old telescope and smiled softly. "You did your job," he whispered. "Now it's time for the next one." The universe did not wait. Stars continued to form behind dust. Galaxies continued to grow. Light continued to travel through time. And far on Earth. Humans prepared to listen better than ever before. The invisible universe was ready to be seen. The only question was simple and terrifying. Would the new eye open? Or would it stay blind forever? The new telescope was finally real. After years of drawings, tests, and endless meetings, it stood ready. Folded tightly, silent, fragile. It looked calm, but inside, it carried the hopes of thousands of people. Engineers walked around it slowly. Some touched the metal one last time. Others just looked. They knew something important. Once it left Earth, there would be no second chance. No repairs. No rescue. No return. The night before launch felt heavy. In control rooms and offices, lights stayed on. Coffee cups were empty. Eyes were tired. No one talked much. Everyone was thinking the same thing. What if it fails? This telescope was different from all before it. It was not placed near Earth. It would travel far away, to a quiet place in space where gravity balanced perfectly. A place where it could stay cold. A place where it could see clearly. But the journey was long. Very long. Launch day arrived. The sky was clear. The air was still. The rocket stood tall, holding the folded telescope inside its nose like a secret. The countdown began. 10, 9, 8. Hearts beat faster. 3, 2, 1. Fire exploded. The rocket lifted slowly, then faster and faster. The ground shook. The sound filled the air. And then it was gone. The telescope was on its way. Cheers filled the room, but they were short. Everyone knew the truth. The real danger had just begun. For days, the telescope traveled silently through space. Each hour brought a new test. Solar panels opened. Antennas turned. Signals came back. So far, so good. But the hardest part was still ahead. The unfolding. The telescope had to open itself step by step. Like a giant machine waking up. One move at a time. Each step depended on the last. First, the sun shield. Thin layers, larger than a tennis court, had to spread out perfectly. These layers would protect the telescope from heat. If even one layer failed, the telescope would overheat. On Earth, people watched the screens. No one blinked. Commands were sent. Minutes passed. Then a signal arrived. Step 1 complete. A small breath of relief, but there were many steps left. Hours turned into days. Each movement was slow, careful, silent. The telescope did not rush. Humans wanted speed. Space demanded patience. Finally, it was time for the mirror. The giant mirror wings had to open and lock into place. This mirror was the heart of the telescope. Without it, there would be no vision. The command was sent. Silence. Seconds felt like years. Then dash confirmation. The mirror opened. Applause erupted. Some people wiped tears from their eyes. Others just sat down. Weak with relief. The telescope was whole. But it was not ready yet. Now it had to cool down. Slowly. Very slowly. Weeks passed as the telescope drifted farther from Earth. Its temperature dropped. Instruments slept, waiting for the right moment. During this time, scientists could do nothing but wait. Waiting is hard, especially when everything depends on it. Finally, the signal came. The telescope was cold enough. It was time to see. Light entered the mirror for the first time. Invisible light. Old light. Light that had traveled longer than Earth had existed. The data returned slowly. At first, the images were unclear, blurry, messy. No one panicked. This was expected. The mirrors needed fine adjustment. Tiny movements. Smaller than a grain of sand. Engineers worked carefully. Day after day. They adjusted, tested, and adjusted again. Then, one image appeared. Clear. Sharp. Deep. The room went silent. The telescope was seeing the invisible. Dust clouds opened like curtains. Hidden stars appeared. Distant galaxies glowed softly. The universe looked different now. Older, deeper, more alive. Someone whispered, "We did it?" But another scientist shook his head slowly. "No," he said. "This is just the beginning." Because the telescope was not built for one image. It was built to change how humans see everything. Far away. In the dark and cold of space, the new eye stayed open. Patient. Quiet. Watching and the universe. Full of secrets, finally began to reveal itself. At first, the universe was quiet. The new telescope floated far from Earth, cold and steady. It did not rush. It did not blink. It waited. just like it was designed to do. On Earth, scientists waited too. They had built the telescope to ask questions. Now they were ready for answers. But the universe does not speak loudly. It speaks slowly, in light that travels across time. The first real data arrived late at night. A small team was present. No cameras. No news. Just screens, numbers, and tired eyes. One scientist leaned forward. "This light is very old," she said softly. "How old?" someone asked. "Older than our galaxy," she replied. The room went silent. The telescope was not just seeing far. It was seeing early. The images were strange. Galaxies looked different. They were smaller, messier, brighter in strange places. They did not look calm or balanced. They looked young. This was the universe, learning how to exist. The telescope was seeing galaxies that formed shortly after the universe was born. Their light had traveled for more than 13 billion years, crossing expanding space, surviving dust in darkness. And now, finally, it had arrived. The universe had answered back. More data came in. Day after day. Night after night. Every image brought new questions. Some galaxies were too bright. Some were too large for their age. Some appeared where nothing should exist. "This should not be here," one scientist said, pointing at the screen. "But it is," another replied. The telescope was not broken. The data was real. That was the problem. The old ideas no longer fit. For years, scientists believed they understood how galaxies formed slowly, carefully, over long periods of time, but the telescope showed something else. The early universe was fast, wild, violent. Stars were born quickly. Galaxies grew faster than expected. Black holes appeared where they should not exist yet. It was uncomfortable. Knowledge can be scary when it destroys comfort. Some scientists felt excited. Others felt nervous. A few felt lost. One senior researcher stared at the data for a long time. "We asked to see the truth," he said. "And now we have to accept it." The telescope continued to observe. It did not judge. It did not explain. It only showed. Behind thick dust clouds, stars were being born. Their heat glowed in infrared light. Places once dark were now alive with detail. The universe was not empty. It was busy. It was loud, in its own silent way. Soon, the first official images were released to the world. People everywhere stopped and stared. They saw deep space filled with light. Colors they had never imagined. Shapes that felt unreal. Social media exploded. News channels talked non-stop. Children pointed at screens with wide eyes. Many people felt the same thing. A strange mix of wonder and fear. The universe looked beautiful, but also overwhelming. Humans felt small again. But this time, it felt different. Before, being small felt lonely. Now, it felt connected. The telescope had shown that humans were part of a much larger story. A story that began long before Earth existed. Still, the questions did not stop. If the universe formed faster than expected, what else were scientists wrong about? Dark matter. Dark energy. The future of the universe. The telescope did not answer these questions yet, but it pointed toward them like a quiet guide. Late one night, when the control room was almost empty, a young scientist looked at the screen and smiled. "It feels like the universe is talking," he said. "Not in words," another replied, "but in light, far away." The telescope continued its work, calm, patient, unbothered by human confusion. It had one job. To show what is real. And what it showed next would be even more shocking. Because the telescope was not only looking back in time. It was also looking for something closer. Something that could change how humans see themselves. Something called home. The telescope changed its focus. After looking deep into the past, it slowly turned towards something closer. Not stars being born. Not ancient galaxies. Planets. Small, quiet worlds moving around distant stars. For a long time, humans believed their home was rare. Earth felt special. Blue. Alive. Alone. But the telescope was built to ask a dangerous question. Are we really alone? Far away from Earth, the telescope watched tiny shadows move across distant stars. These shadows were small and weak, easy to miss. But they meant something important. A planet was passing in front of its star. When this happened, the telescope studied the light. Not the planet itself, but the star's light passing through the planet's atmosphere. This light carried secrets. It showed what gases were present. Water vapor, carbon dioxide, methane. Signs that could mean life. On Earth, scientists leaned closer to their screens. This work was slow. One planet at a time. One signal at a time. Many planets showed nothing special. But then, something changed. A planet appeared in the data. Small, rocky. Not too hot, not too cold. Just right. Its star was far away, but steady. The planet moved calmly around it. Again and again, the telescope studied its atmosphere carefully. The room was silent. Numbers appeared. Lines moved on the screen. Computers checked and rechecked the data. Scientists broke the silence. There is water here, she said. No one spoke. Another voice followed. And gases that should not exist together. That was important. On Earth, certain gases can only stay together if something is making them. Something alive. This did not mean life was found, but it meant possibility. And possibility is powerful. The telescope did not confirm answers. It opened doors. Suddenly, Earth did not feel so lonely. More planets followed. Some were too hot. Some were frozen. Some were covered in thick clouds. Strange worlds. Beautiful worlds. The universe was full of planets. Trillions of them. Each one different. Humans had spent most of their history looking inward, fighting, building, surviving. Now, they were looking outward, and what they saw changed them. Late one night, a scientist stood by a window, looking at the stars. He thought about the telescope far away, silently watching. All this time, he said quietly, we thought we were searching for others. He paused, but maybe we were searching for ourselves. The telescope continued its mission. It measured light. It studied atmospheres. It listened carefully to what the universe was saying. It did not promise life. It did not promise answers. It promised truth. And sometimes, truth is enough to change everything. Far beyond Earth, worlds continued to spin around their stars. Quiet, patient, waiting. Waiting to be noticed. The telescope stayed focused, because the final question was still unanswered. If life is possible elsewhere, what does that mean for us? The universe had one last lesson to teach, and it was bigger than anyone expected. The telescope did not celebrate. It did not pause. It did not feel proud. It simply continued to watch. Far from Earth, in deep and cold space, the great eye stayed open. Light touched its mirror. Old light. New light. Light carrying stories from every corner of the universe. On Earth, humans changed. Not suddenly. Not loudly. But deeply. Scientists no longer spoke with full confidence. They spoke with care. The universe had shown them something important. It was not simple. It was not small. And it did not follow human rules. Every discovery from the telescope brought beauty, but also humility. Humans learned that they were not at the center. Not of the galaxy. Not of the universe. And that was okay. One image showed a tiny, blue dot. Earth. Small. Fragile. alone in a vast ocean of darkness. The telescope did not focus on Earth often, but when it did, the meaning was powerful. All of human history existed on that ... Every war, every love story, every dream got suddenly. Problems felt smaller. Borders felt weaker. Differences felt less important. The universe did not care about human fights. It did not choose sides. It did not judge. It only existed. The telescope had shown ancient galaxies being born and stars dying in fire. It had shown worlds that might hold life. It had shown darkness filled with light, but the most important thing it showed was quiet. Space was not empty. But it was calm. One night, a senior scientist spoke to a group of young students. He showed them images from the telescope. Colors, shapes, deep space. A student raised a hand. Why did we build it? The student asked. To find life? To find answers? The scientist smiled. We built it, he said slowly, because humans ask questions. He paused, and because not knowing is more painful than risk. The telescope would not last forever. One day, it would grow old. Its fuel would run out. Its instruments would fall silent, but its impact would not. Future telescopes were already being planned. Bigger, smarter, braver, each. One standing on the shoulders of the last. The universe was not finished speaking, and humans were not finished listening. Far away, the telescope continued its endless orbit. Alone but not forgotten. Cold but full of purpose. It watched stars being born. It watched light travel through time. It watched the universe breathe, and in its silent work, it left humans with one quiet truth. We are small, but we are curious, and as long as curiosity lives, the universe will never be completely dark. The end.